Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
And so begins the 21-gun salute.
Set it at 12 seconds after noon. So help me God. Completing the oath of office right at noon.
And there were protesters down there wearing shirts that spelled out resist. They were audible from the platform.
Hi everybody, this is Paul B., the homeless consultant. And I want to do something I haven't done before in my videos. Do something kind of freeform. Donald Trump was just inaugurated President of the United States, as you heard. At the time he's being inaugurated, I am homeless and living in a car after spending my entire life working hard for something much better. And much of that time, far more so than most of the people out there, that time in my life was spent serving this country in some capacity or another. I never joined the military, but I've always been aware that we must fight against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I haven't said much about why I'm homeless. There's several reasons, as I said, that came in a perfect storm of events, but one of those is that when I see corruption in government, I fight it. And I fight it with all I've got. And since I've moved to Minnesota, I have seen almost nothing but corruption, incompetence, and negligence. And it's not worthy of a nation like the United States of America. And I've fought it hard. And I lost. And that's one reason why, about 20 minutes ago, I woke up in this car. And all I have to do is crack open these windows and you'll start seeing my breath from the cold. I want to say something to all the people who have a problem with Donald Trump being elected president. This isn't about who you wanted to win the election. This isn't about who I wanted to win the election. 8 years ago, when Barack Obama won the election, and I was not happy at all. He is not the candidate that I wanted to win. And based on what happened in the last 8 years, I think I was correct from my personal viewpoint to not want to see him become president. However, on the day that he was inaugurated president, it brought me to tears. Tears of joy. Because this country was so great that, barely 150 years earlier, blacks were enslaved, and now one of them was being inaugurated president of the United States. So while I may not have liked the man and didn't want him to be president, I wanted to show respect for the office of president and allow him to be the president because he was elected as such. And again, I couldn't have been more proud of our nation for electing a black man to be president. 8 years later, someone else has been elected president, someone who a lot of you don't like and don't want to be president. But instead of shedding tears of joy and being so proud of this nation for the way that it swings back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, but when it does that, it never becomes an extreme dictatorship one way or the other. It's still the best nation on earth. And one reason is because for 8 years we have a Barack Obama, and then for 4 or maybe 8 we have a Donald Trump. But in between, more than anything else, there are millions of Americans who get most of the work actually done. I've spent much of my last 49 years doing my part, far more than the people out there, the people who live in nice warm homes and drive nice cars instead of this beat up vehicle that I call home now. I fight corruption where I see it. Corruption, not politicians who I personally disagree with. If they won the election, they have every right to be there. And I will do everything I can to get them voted out in the next election. But you know what? Thanks to the government we have in Minnesota right now, which happens to be more aligned with Barack Obama's ideology, I was denied my right to vote in the last election in November. I couldn't have voted for Hillary Clinton or for Donald Trump. I couldn't have written in myself. I was denied my right to vote. And my question to the people out there who have a problem with Donald Trump winning is, what have you done about that? Because for 2 years I have been asking Americans for help to get out of this. And as I am now completely out of resources, and frankly, I'm preparing to die in the 21st century America from third world conditions right in front of your eyes, while you spent the last several months out there whining and moaning and crying about Donald Trump being elected president. I'm sorry things didn't go your way, but you know what? Things don't always go your way in life. That's the way life is. I don't like the situation I'm in right now. Things didn't go my way, and I did nothing to deserve it. In fact, I was the only person who stood up against this kind of corruption and incompetence and negligence. And the people around me encouraged me to do it because they wanted somebody to do it, but they didn't have the moral courage to do it. And then when I got my head chopped off by this corrupt, incompetent, and negligent government, nobody stood up to save me or to help me. And now I'm preparing to die. And I'll tell you one thing. I couldn't be more proud of what I just heard in that inauguration. And it's not because Donald Trump's president. It's because the people of America who voted for a president, that person was just inaugurated president. You don't know how lucky you have it. Shame on every single one of you who are whining and moaning and booing the President of the United States as he's being sworn into office. Shame on you for your childishness, your juvenile behavior, your complete misunderstanding of all of human political history, your failure to grasp the blessings we have in this country. And more specifically, you're failing to grasp your responsibility to make this country great. Because it was never Barack Obama's responsibility to make the entire country great, and it is not Donald Trump's responsibility. It is all of our responsibility. What have you done to help me and the other 3 million or so homeless Americans out there? I haven't heard a word said about homeless. I've heard everything said about people who were born male and they think they're female, or vice versa, or they're born male and they think they're a dog or whatever. The stuff that's gone on lately is absolutely insane. And you people will stand up for them, stand up for their so-called rights. You've got 3 million people in this wonderful nation of ours sleeping in cars, living under bridges, living in camps, being arrested, having their existence criminalized. The criminalization of homelessness. What have you done about that? And how many homeless people did you step over or walk around without even thinking about it while you were totally obsessed with walking to your protest against Donald Trump? 8 years ago, I accepted the outcome of the election. 4 years ago, I accepted the outcome of the election when Barack Obama won, and I didn't like it. But I looked for the silver lining. And the silver lining to me in the first case was that a nation that had slavery 150 years ago elected a black president. How could you not be happy about that? I was happy about that. I'm sorry he turned out to be a president who I think was a miserable failure. But again, in the end, it doesn't matter. It swings back and forth. Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal. That's the way the country works. But in those 8 years, people like you did nothing to improve this country. And you are the ones who can make this country great. I did my part. And the corruption I fought against won, and the reason they won, and the reason I get to sit here and die while that legislature in St. Paul is sitting there probably laughing their heads off. They certainly don't care. All the shelters I've been to over the last month, not a single legislator showed up. They could care less if we live or die. As I have said from the beginning, in the state of Minnesota, their solution to homelessness is to exterminate the homeless by ignoring, neglecting, intimidating the homeless so that they move away and become someone else's problem, or just totally neglecting them until they die. Off camera, always off camera. Because people like you only pay attention to what's on camera. You don't pay attention to what's going on in the real world. I encourage you over the next 4 years to grow up, learn about history, count your blessings for heaven's sakes. We live in a wonderful nation, and it could be so much better if you would do your part. Congratulations to President Donald Trump, and as hard as it is for me to say, to former President Barack Obama, you played your role in the way our nation elects its leaders and transfers power from one to the other peacefully and voluntarily. And for that much at least, I thank you, former President Obama. And I wish you nothing but the best, President Trump. But to the other 330 million or so Americans out there who do absolutely nothing but drink beer and watch television and protest against what they don't like instead of doing something to make this country great, I hope you'll grow up. That's all I have to say.